On the surface, Little Women seems like this quiet, cozy story about four sisters, right? Set way back in Civil War-era America. But if you look just a little closer, it's actually this grand epic about something much bigger, the architecture of a life. So how did this novel about, well, home, become one of our most timeless explorations of ambition, of art, and of identity itself? That's what we're going to get into.
And it all really starts here. This one single line from Jo March, it's the heartbeat of the whole book. It just perfectly captures that tension between the safety and comfort of home and that burning, sometimes completely undefined, desire for a life that means something. This feeling, it's the engine that drives every single page.
So, to help her daughters navigate this feeling, their mother, Marmee, she gives them a framework. A really clever one, actually. She reframes their entire lives as a game, based on this old allegorical book, The Pilgrim's Progress. All of a sudden, their home becomes this landscape of moral challenges, and their own personal flaws, those become burdens they have to learn to master.
So each sister is given her own central struggle to work on. For Meg, the oldest, it's vanity. For Jo, our fiery protagonist, it's this really destructive temper. Gentle Beth is held back by her shyness and fear, and Amy, the youngest, well, she has to overcome a deep core of selfishness. And look, these aren't just little personality quirks. These are the central conflicts that are going to forge who these women become.
As they get older, their paths really start to diverge, and nowhere is that contrast more clear than between Jo and Amy. Now, this is where the novel presents a pretty radical idea for its time, that ambition isn't just one single path. It's a whole spectrum, and there's more than one right way for a woman to build a splendid life.
This contrast is absolutely central to how the book thinks about being an artist. Joda is that romantic ideal, right? She's all passion and raw talent, writing to express herself, rebelling against every convention she can. But Amy is the pragmatist. She gets the talent needs polish, that art has to function inside a social system. And the amazing thing is, the book doesn't judge one as better than the other. It validates both paths.
The true genius of Little Women is that its biggest, most life-changing moments don't happen on some grand battlefield. They happen in the most ordinary places. A living room, a frozen river. It's in these small, domestic crucibles where character is really, truly forged. Let's take a look at one of the most famous examples.
Okay, so the whole thing starts with an act of jealousy. Amy feels left out because her sisters went to the theater without her, and so she retaliates. She finds Jo's most prized possession, the manuscript she has poured her entire soul into, and she does the unforgivable. She throws it in the fire. And in the aftermath, this quiet, totally insufficient apology is all she can offer.
And Jo's reply is just absolute. It's cold, it's hard, it's terrifying. That burden of her temper, which has been simmering this whole time, is finally unleashed in all its destructive force. This is so much more than a sisterly fight. This is a profound violation.
You have to understand, that burned book, it represented a piece of Jo's soul. Her cold fury just hangs in the air, and it leads directly to this near tragedy where she doesn't warn Amy about thin ice on the river. Amy is saved, of course, but Jo is just plunged into this crisis, realizing her anger could have literally killed her sister. And in her despair, Jo finally turns to Marmee. And this is where the novel gives us one of its most powerful lessons. Marmee confesses, "I am angry nearly every day of my life." Just a stunning revelation, and it completely reframes what strength is. It's not about the absence of flaws. It's about the lifelong, patient courage it takes to manage them. That one quiet confession is a big part of why this story feels so intensely real, even a century and a half later. It's why we still feel like we live in that house right alongside these characters. The story lasts because it has the courage to ask questions that are just timeless. Little Women doesn't really give you easy answers. Instead, the March House itself becomes this safe space to explore these huge dilemmas. The book respects how complex it is to want two different things at once. A family and a career, independence and connection, a private self and a public life.
And its modern power is kind of striking. Think about Meg's burden of vanity. She's at a wealthy friend's party, she gets dressed up in all this borrowed finery, and she just ends up feeling fake and ashamed. I mean, that struggle with performance and identity, it's a perfect 19th century version of the curated pressures of social media, isn't it? We're all constantly crafting these idealized versions of ourselves for everyone else to see.
But beyond just the emotional connection, the book actually gives us a set of really powerful mental models. We can basically distill the wisdom of the March family down into a few core principles.
frameworks we can use to navigate our own lives. So, first up, the Marmee Principle. This is a profound lesson in emotional intelligence. It teaches that having difficult feelings isn't a sign of weakness. The real work is in acknowledging them and learning, day by day, not to let them control you. Okay, next is what I call the Laurie problem. Jo's rejection of Laurie is one of the most argued about moments in literature. And it's painful, but it's also such a mature insight. It shows us that a deep friendship, even perfect understanding, doesn't automatically equal a romantic partnership. And recognizing that difference, well, that's a real mark of wisdom.
Then you've got the Amy advantage. Now, it's easy to just write Amy off as being calculating, but the novel argues her strategic approach is just as valid as Jo's passionate rebellion. Amy understands that to create art, an artist often needs resources and training and a place in society. Her pragmatism is actually the very thing that allows her passion to flourish.
And finally, there's the Beth legacy. In a book that's so driven by ambition, Beth's life is quiet and it's tragically short. But she is the moral center of that family. Her legacy reminds us that goodness and kindness aren't passive things. They are active forces that shape the world in ways that are profound and honestly often underestimated.
So these 4 paths, they really offer us a mirror. Are you a Meg, trying to navigate social expectations? A Jo, fighting to make your voice heard? Maybe you're an Amy, strategically building your future. Or a Beth, finding real power and quiet goodness. The book really invites every one of us to find ourselves somewhere in its pages.
Because in the end, what Little Women teaches us is that all our ambitions, all our struggles and journeys, they're ultimately about building an inner home, a place of integrity and love and self-knowledge from which we can finally face the world.